Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Cailin, and today I'm going to be doing your May 2022 horoscope. So you can watch this if you are a Gemini rising, sun, or moon. I would say that your rising sign, otherwise known as your ascendant sign, will be the most accurate for you overall. Having said that, if you're a Gemini sun, this will very much resonate with you with regard to your career and your life goals. Whereas if you are a moon in Gemini person, this is likely to impact you on an emotional level and with regard to your living circumstances and your personal relationships. So, the first transit for the month is the new moon in Taurus. Now, if you're in the southern hemisphere like myself, this will be taking place on the 1st of May. However, if you are in the northern hemisphere, for the majority of you, this will be taking place on the 30th of April. So, eclipses are essentially like new moons, but on steroids. So, what I mean by that is that they can bring some powerful changes into our lives. Now, this one will be occurring at 10 degrees in the sign of Taurus, which means it will be taking place in your 12th house. Now, this new moon in Taurus will be conjunct Uranus at 14 degrees. That is the only harsh, or I suppose you could say hard aspect that this eclipse will be making. Otherwise, the other energy supporting this is really, really beneficial. So the ruler of the eclipse is Venus, and Venus will be in a very tight conjunction with Jupiter. They will be just 1 minute apart at 27 degrees in the sign of Pisces. So this new moon eclipse will be sextiling Venus and Jupiter. It will also be sextiling Neptune in Pisces, as well as Mars, which will be at 11 degrees in Pisces. So as you can see, this is overwhelmingly supportive energy for this eclipse. Now, because it's taking place in your 12th house, this can see there being a new chapter that is beginning with regard to spirituality. So this could see you discovering new intuitive gifts or psychic abilities. And because this is occurring at the 10th degree, which is the Capricorn degree, this represents your ability to reach new heights, because Capricorn is represented by the goat, and the goat is all about climbing to the peak of the mountain. So you can certainly start exercising a lot of active or conscious control over these psychic abilities and intuitive gifts. And for some of you, this could just flat out be a new spiritual awakening. Now, on a different level, this could see you discovering some kind of new, albeit hidden, talent or ability. And I'm saying this because the ruler of the eclipse is Venus, and Venus rules over your 5th house, which is Libra, as well as your 12th house. Now, for some of you, this may be connected to the arts, whether this is acting, something artistic, maybe this is connected to filmography, photography, or even music as well. Now, on a different level, the 5th house, which Venus rules over, represents sports, and a lot of people who have a lot of planets or placements in the 12th house, or even ruler of the 5th house in the 12th, or sun or moon or chart ruler in the 12th house, they can be quite talented in sport. Now, this could simply be a new hobby that's taking off with regard to sport, or you could have a newfound interest in politics. Now, you could just be starting a new creative project. On a different level, you may actually be brought into the public eye via your interest or your abilities in one of those aforementioned things. And I'm saying that because Mars, Jupiter, Venus, and Neptune are all in Pisces in your 10th house. So although this eclipse is taking place in the 12th house, which is quite hidden and quite secretive, the fact that it makes a sextile to this stellium of planets in your 10th house represents you somehow being well known for something 12th housey. So this could be, spirituality, politics, music, art, acting, like I said, photography, filmography. Also, on a different level, the 12th house is connected to yoga and meditation. So it could be several of those things put together. In any case, with the sextile to Mars, which rules over your 11th house, which can represent your long-term goals and dreams, and with Mars ruling over your 6th house, which represents your work, this new chapter that is starting in your life could lead to you having some new goals and dreams which represent what you want to do with your career or with work. In any case, the energy surrounding eclipses can be quite dramatic, so emotions can be running high, tensions may be running high as well, and you may be experiencing disturbed sleep, or perhaps you're having some weird dreams or even premonitions, especially because this is taking place in your 12th house. On a different level, eclipse energy can have us feeling really drained and really fatigued. So at this point in time, when I'm filming this, which is on the 15th of April, we're now 2 weeks out from this eclipse, and we've got another one on the 16th of May. So essentially, all of these sensations could be experienced between now and until probably like the first or the second week of June. So on the 10th of May, we are going to see Mercury, which is your ruling planet, stationing retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So this will station retrograde, well, Mercury will be retrograde at 4 degrees, and then it will retrograde back into the sign of Taurus in your 12th house, which will take place around the 22nd or the 23rd of May. And then it will station direct at 26 degrees Taurus on the 3rd or the 4th of June. So Mercury naturally rules over Gemini, as we know, and that means that when Mercury is retrograde in Gemini, this is when um, this is when things can really, really change quite rapidly, because Gemini is an air sign, and retrogrades in air signs can bring forth rapid communications, changes in personal relationships and friendships. And also, you may be reacquainted or reconnecting with a friend or a colleague or even a co-worker. So, with Mercury being retrograde in your first house, this can see you redefining your physical appearance, how you present yourself. You may be reassessing the path or the trajectory that you are on, and your priorities with respect to your home life can shift quite dramatically. And I'm saying that because not only does Mercury rule over your first house, it also rules over your fourth house. So this can see you basically reassessing where you want to live, because the fourth house is connected to our living circumstances and property. Maybe you want to relocate abroad. Maybe you're not happy with your flatmates or whom you're living with at home. And on a different level, you may get reacquainted with family members that you are either estranged from or that you haven't really been seeing eye to eye with. So this can see you redefining and making adjustments to these relationships. On a different level, with Mercury ruling over your fourth house, which represents your ancestry, some of you may become quite interested in your ancestors. And this could even be for those of you who are adopted. Maybe you're looking at seeking out your biological parents, and it could work the other way as well if you adopted a child out. Now, on a different level, this can basically just see you changing what you want to do, just generally speaking. I know that sounds vague, but with Mercury ruling over the first house, which represents your ascendant, this represents where you're going and what you're doing. So this can impact you in the sense that you may decide that you want to change jobs, you want to change your appearance, you want to change how you dress, you want to change how you're perceived, you want to make adjustments to your living circumstances, which could just be renovating. Maybe you're looking at getting new furniture, or just, reconfiguring some of the furniture or arrangements in your own home. I know I personally have been looking to purchase a family home for, well, it'll be 3 years in a few months' time. So I'm really hoping that this means that I can purchase a new home. But enough about me. On the 22nd/23rd of May, Mercury will retrograde back into the sign of Taurus, like I mentioned earlier, which means that this will be in your 12th house. So, this can see you reconsidering your beliefs surrounding spirituality. And also, the 12th house, like I mentioned before, is connected to meditation, yoga, tarot, astrology, and I mean, the 8th house is as well. Nonetheless, Mercury here can see you picking these areas of interest back up. So if you were, for example, taking astrology lessons and you had either cancelled that or deferred it or put it on pause, this can see you picking that back up. And if you have your own deck of tarot cards, this can see you getting back into practicing with the tarot. And on a different level, this can see you doing a total 180 with regard to your spiritual beliefs. So, just as a random example, there's this tarot reader who I just loved and adored. And, I followed her videos monthly. And one day she put out a video and she said, look, I'm changing the course that I'm on. I have found God, I found Jesus, and I'm not going to be doing tarot readings anymore. And of course, it's personal choice. People can do whatever they like, but that's just an example of how people can basically do kind of like a flip flop on their pre existing beliefs. Now, on a different level, this can see you having some, well, repressed childhood memories bubbling up to the surface. And I'm saying that because Mercury rules over your 4th house, which is very much connected to your childhood. Mercury is, of course, the planet that rules you. So this represents what's happening to you or what has happened to you on a very personal level. And with Mercury being in the 12th house, Mercury is you and it represents your conscious awareness of something. So, being in the 12th house, it's like, okay, I understand how these experiences have impacted me in a negative way. Or maybe I am exhibiting self sabotaging behaviors which are somehow rooted in my childhood experiences. In any case, the 12th house is also connected to addictions and fears. So, when Mercury is retrograde in the 12th house, we can actually overcome an addiction or overcome a fear because suddenly we understand it from a totally different perspective or a different point of view. And once we're able to understand, things from multiple different sides, as Geminis, this is where we can adapt and pivot. Now, on a different level, this is a great time for people to get back into anything creative that they were doing, anything artistic, anything connected to music. If you play musical instruments, this can see you getting back into that. Now, on a different level, Mercury represents buying and selling, and with Mercury ruling over the 4th house, and with it being in the 12th house, you may be buying or selling property in a foreign country, or you could be selling your property at a loss. And I'm saying that because the 12th house represents large expenses and losses. So even if you're selling your property during your, in your home country or in your hometown, I mean, this is just like general advice. This is a general reading. You don't have to follow it, but you may not want to actually put your property on the market during this period of time, which I'll bookend it for you, would be about the 22nd of May through till about the 4th of June. I'd give it a 2-week buffer just to be safe. Now, some of you may simply be revisiting a foreign country that you have been to before or tying up loose ends there. Now, when I say foreign country, I mean what I like to call a culture shock country. So, just to differentiate, this would be a country where the mother tongue language is different from your own, or this could be in a very remote place. And this would not be like the difference between, say, Australia and New Zealand, who are neighbors, or America, as in the USA, and Canada, who again are neighbors. So this would be more like, I don't know, Australia to Europe, just as an example. Now, lastly, the 12th house is connected to rehabilitation facilities, hospitals, and prisons, as well as like hotels and anything which is remote and secluded. So for some of you, you could be returning to a rehab facility, or if this has been something that you've been considering for a long period of time, you may finally decide to act on this. If you have a jail sentence, this may be adjusted or deferred, or there could be changes which come up with regard to that jail or prison sentence. And let's just see. Well, that's about it for the Mercury retrograde segment. Now, just going back to the 10th of May or the 11th of May, depending where you live in the world, when Jupiter will enter the sign of Aries. So Jupiter will be there from that point in time until the end of October in 2022, at which point Jupiter will retrograde back into Pisces up until the 20th of December. So the first stint of Jupiter being in Aries in your 11th house will be from the 10th of May until the end of October, and then again from the 20th of December through till July in 2023. So I am really happy about this transit as a Gemini rising, because Jupiter is the greater benefic. It brings blessings, abundance, expansion. And in the 11th house, which is considered to be the house of awards, the house of achievements, and it's also a money house, this can see you basically making a lot of headway in those particular departments. So the 11th house is connected to your long-term dreams and goals. So with Jupiter here, you may be realizing some new long-term goals or dreams, and these could be connected to your career or your vocation or simply your mission in life. And that is because Jupiter rules over your 10th house. So the 10th house represents your highest worldly achievements, your life goals, your career, your vocation. And essentially, Jupiter being in the 11th house can represent the awards or the accolades or the recognition that you receive as a result of, some great stuff that you've done in your career. Now, on a different level, this can see you starting to plan a big event or a long-term project. So with Jupiter here, this can represent that you're doing a lot of work for this big event or for this project, and this could require you to learn, which would be wisdom, through experience, which would be, I was just going to say learn, which is Jupiter through experience, which is also very Jupiterian. So maybe you need to try your hand at running some events in order to gain the expertise required to become a master at this. So essentially, when Jupiter enters a sign, it doesn't necessarily bestow the blessings that we usually associate with Jupiter right at the beginning. And that is because Jupiter spends about 1 year in total in a sign. So it's likely that you'll commence something in the early stages, and then around, let's say, middle of next year, or even when Jupiter has left the sign of Aries and it has entered Taurus, that is when you will see the real results start to kick in. But having said that, this is still super, super positive. And with Jupiter ruling over your 7th house, you may be collaborating with another person on a long-term goal or dream of yours. It could be a shared dream. You could be planning an event together. On a different level, you could receive help from someone who has a lot of experience, who can basically show you the ropes. Now, You may actually become a public figure or become well known in a community or in an online space. And that is because the 11th house is connected to large groups and communities, and it also represents our social media portfolio or our social media platforms. So you could become well known for career achievements as represented by Jupiter ruling over your 10th house. You could become well known for your aspirations that you have for your community. Maybe you are speaking to these people about the changes that you want to introduce, or the ways in which you can help, whether this is with resources or whether this is with your own expertise and experience in the industry. In any case, the 11th house is connected to humanitarian causes and equality just in general. So with Jupiter here in the 11th house, this is a very moral place for Jupiter to be. And Jupiter is the planet of wealth and abundance and prosperity, and the 11th house is sometimes known as the house of gains. So you could actually be receiving some kind of financial support or a financial investment from either an individual, as represented by Jupiter ruling over the 7th house, or even some kind of government grant. And this would be indicated by Jupiter ruling over your 10th house. Now, on a different level, for those of you who have social media platforms, these can expand quite rapidly and exponentially. And I'm saying that because the 11th house represents our fans and the 7th house represents our audience. So Jupiter is in the 11th house of fans, it rules over the 7th house of the audience, and this can really see you blowing up in terms of popularity, and you could even go viral for some work that you were doing. Now, this could be you becoming well known for being a teacher in an online space, or teaching your community something, and that is because Jupiter represents teachers. You could be founding a community or a group that is extremely progressive in nature, as represented by the 11th house in and of itself. Now, lastly, you could be starting some kind of legacy, so building up some kind of profile or legacy for yourself. And I'm saying that because Jupiter represents your big goals, your dreams. It's pretty much like Jupiter represents Zeus in Greek mythology. So it's kind of like, where do you want to go large or go home? I actually wrote down this quote, which I love. It's called, "You either have to be first, best, or different." So I really feel like this encapsulates this Jupiter and Aries in your 11th house energy, because Aries represents being the first, okay, because Aries is the first sign. It also can represent being the best, and being different just represents you going on a really large scale in showcasing your unique talents and abilities and the ways in which you can inspire other people, which is very Jupiterian. Now, moving on to the 16th of May, when we are going to see the total lunar eclipse take place in the sign of Scorpio. So this will be at 25 degrees Scorpio in your 6th house. So this eclipse will be very powerful indeed, and that is because it's a total lunar eclipse rather than a partial lunar eclipse. So just to really break that down for you, this eclipse couldn't be more powerful. Okay, so lunar eclipses, otherwise known as full moon eclipses, represent the ending of a chapter taking place. So with regard to this being in your 6th house, this could be connected to your work, to your health, or to a debt, but I'll go into how this can play out for you. So with work, this can see you concluding a huge work project, or you may actually be leaving your job. Now, another way that this could play out is that your boss may resign may resign or an employee may resign. Now, in terms of the energies surrounding this eclipse, well, it will be making a trine to Mars and Neptune in Pisces, which are in your 10th house. Now, Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, which means that Mars rules over this eclipse. I'm very happy to see that the ruler of the eclipse is being trined, because the negative or the hard aspect that this eclipse makes is a square to Uranus in Aquarius in your 9th house. So, on one hand, it looks like on the work front, some kind of project will finally be pulled off, or you can leave your job and it looks like this is really going to benefit you, or maybe you're just saying goodbye to certain duties or responsibilities in the workplace. But then this square to um, Saturn in Aquarius in your 9th house represents that you may actually have to disappoint someone that you respect. So maybe your employer is really upset to see you go, or perhaps you went against their advice with how to pull off some kind of project. And even though you've done this successfully, they're kind of like, well, you flat out just ignored my advice, or, you didn't do what I thought you were going to do. Now, on a different level, this can see you resolving some kind of conflict, and this could even be a court case. And I would see this as being your reputation or your status remaining intact, because Mars and Neptune will be trined in your 10th house. So this represents how people are perceiving you. So it's kind of like, okay, the end of this conflict or this court case has still got you, you're still in a good position. And yet this square to Saturn in Aquarius in your 9th house indicates that this could in some way hinder or damage your long-term prospects or your goals or dreams, or this could simply have an impact on your ability to study at a higher level or travel. Now, I'm certainly not saying that that is permanent. It could just be a temporary sacrifice that you have to make, and that would also be supported by the fact that Neptune is involved here. So it's kind of like you have to give something up to gain something in return. Now, this can see you basically having some kind of health crisis come to an end. Now, it may reach a peak before it gets better. So I'm saying that because eclipses can sometimes represent a dramatic turn of events happening, and it's almost like with the square to Saturn in the 9th house, it looks like things have slowed down, or it looks like things are going to take longer than what you would have anticipated, or maybe the final result isn't what you had expected. And yet the trine to Mars and Neptune in your 10th house represents something positive. Now, I know that that sounds relatively vague, but just remember, eclipses are very, very hard to, it's hard to make predictions about eclipses accurately, because the nature of them is that they bring about events which are usually quite unforeseeable. And I just want to mention that this is a general reading, so I certainly don't want any of you to freak out about the health crisis thing. It certainly doesn't need to be that way. As you guys know, I'm a Gemini rising, and I'm not looking at this being worried, because ultimately there's a lot of supportive energy with this eclipse, so I'm happy about that. Now, this can see you ending some kind of let's call it a bad habit. So maybe this is something that you've tried to do before, or maybe the road to giving up this bad habit is a little bit longer than what you would have anticipated, but ultimately total lunar eclipses represent a slam book shut moment. So even if it takes a few months after the eclipse to set in, there's something very permanent about eclipses and what they can bring into our lives. Well, I mean to say what can end in our lives because it's a lunar eclipse. Now, on the 20th of May, Gemini season will begin. It's the day before my birthday. And essentially, from the 20th of May till about the 20th or the 21st of June. This is where you can be experiencing more vitality, higher energy levels. This is really, really positive for health because the sun can kind of like recharge you. So again, I see this as a positive thing with respect to health. Now, lastly, for the month, on the 24th/25th of May, depending where you live in the world, Mars will enter the sign of Aries, which means that it will be in your 11th house. Now, what's interesting is that Jupiter is already there. Venus entered Aries on the 3rd of May, and it will be there until the 28th of May. And from about the 25th of May, we're also going to have the moon in Aries as well. So that's Moon, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and also Chiron. So the 11th house is like so activated for this period of time. And I only just noticed it when I was doing these transits, writing my notes for the transit report. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening then? So this is actually a great time for you to initiate new connections, reach out to people, try to connect with them in terms of, starting up collaborations, new business connections, new acquaintances, new friends. And because Mars is here, this is about you seeking out these people or seeking out these connections. So we're not waiting on our asses for people to get in touch with us. We're seeking them out. And this can have a really, really positive impact on you. And I'm saying this because Jupiter rules over your 7th house, which represents your one-on-one connections. It also represents um, long-term relationships and partnerships. I just realized that this could actually indicate a new romance starting with a friend. And that is because Venus is also in Aries, and Venus rules over your 5th house, which is Libra. So essentially, this is a really potent period of time for taking an actionable step towards your long-term goals and projects. And as I'm saying this, it's 3:33 on the clock right now. So do that. Now, this can see you projecting ahead. Where do you want to be working in the future? What are your goals health-wise? Mars in the 11th house, worst case scenario, can lead to arguments or disagreements with friends, business connections, co-workers, colleagues, clients, and also older siblings. This could be over a number of different things, but let's just say money, work projects, health matters, debts, conflictual situations in general, and certainly with finances, that could be a hot topic. But ultimately, with that much energy in the 11th house, which is one of the luckiest houses in astrology, you really will want to capitalize on this period of time or on this point in time when it comes to launching new business ideas, putting your new and progressive ideas out there on your social media platforms, reaching out to people with your new ideas. And it doesn't necessarily need to be that you act on these immediately. It's about having that initial conversation. So, Gemini, I'm going to leave it there for you for May 2022. If you enjoyed this horoscope, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content on this channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you want to book a private one-on-one reading with me, you can do so via the link in the description box below. All my readings are done via Zoom video call. So it pretty much looks like this. So us chatting, and of course you will be able to record your reading as well. So have an amazing month. Enjoy your season, and I will see you guys next time.